Welcome to the Sunday, June, January 17th, 2021 meeting online of the Natural Rights Sangha. It's a cold, gray, rainy day in the Pacific Northwest. What a surprise. I have the window open because it's so not bright out that it's not a problem. And maybe we'll see a deer go by if we get lucky, although the angle might be wrong. Deer come by all the time here. Behind, you can see Vancouver Island off in the distance, along with Ramana Maharshi. And right in front of us and behind you, or in front of me and behind you, the Olympic Mountains. In fact, we're on the base of the Olympic Mountains right where we live. But it's an interesting time right now. Never thought I'd see a time like this in America, in my country. People are invading the Capitol and beating up police and calling themselves patriots for doing so. And being invited by our president to do it. Boy, that makes it even more interesting. Yeah, I've never quite understood patriotism like that. Well, let us go to our meditation. And please set your timers for however many minutes you wish. And by now, you know the score. We'll meditate you'll turn off the tape here, the video, and set your timer. And when it goes off, then you can turn it back on. And however many minutes you wish. Of course, most people say more is good, but more to the sake of excess, no. More to the sake of what's right, yes. So however many minutes you wish. So sitting up straight, relaxed, but good posture. Focusing on the breath. We're not doing a guided meditation or focusing on anything in particular. We're just being empty of stray thoughts and counting the breath and being in the moment with the breath, inhaling and exhaling through focusing as it goes by and in and out on the tip of the nose. So let's begin. Well, welcome back. Meditation is always good, yeah. Well, always is a hard word, but a good meditation, of course, is always worthwhile. And a bad one says, hey, something's up. I better look at that. So either way, there could be a good benefit to it. My American self has been angry recently. Angry that so many things I held to be almost sacred in a national sense have been desecrated. If we wanted to look for real election fraud, we could go back to 2000 and what happened there. If we wanted more election fraud, we can look at Ohio in 2004. If you want to look at where there should have been voter recounts, we could go to 2016 in a couple states like Wisconsin. Didn't happen. Now, when there didn't need to be a recount, when all the votes that were allowed to be cast were counted pretty well, apparently. furor, craziness, denial, and much of it from a so-called religious perspective. Which is why I say that the Natural Rights Sangha is a spiritual organization. We aren't a religion, so to speak, in that you have to please me or please anybody or count on me to be your intermediary to get to God or anything like this. Our precepts are recommended. In fact, really, to be a member of this Sangha, you would want to endeavor to follow these precepts. And if not, if you wanted to be a member, but one of the precepts really rankled you, you should certainly write to me or call me or talk to me, and we'll figure something out one way or the other. Because these precepts are for everybody, they're for all people, they're for any faith. They don't keep you from being a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Hindu or anything else. That's the whole point of them. But I've been angry, and and I think a lot of Americans are feeling stress, right, and anger. And I was looking at the precepts, saying, okay, do I have any precepts to look at that talk about anger per se? And I realized that yes, but not by name. If we look at avoid unnecessary suffering by living without assumptions and expectations of others or myself, that precept, when your expectations are not met or your assumptions are not met, we get angry. I had an expectation and an assumption that some of the stuff that's happened the last couple of weeks could never happen in this country. It did. And that those assumptions and expectations resulted in being angry. You know, they were not upheld. They were broken. They turned out to be mistaken assumptions and expectations. And therefore, anger showed up. Mm. And then the temptation to judge myself for having let the anger show up. There's also our precept about respect all traditions and paths. Well, QAnon and Proud Boy is not a tradition or path of what I would call the spiritual or religious type, although QAnon could be a cult in some cases for many people. However, the idea of respecting that path, even if you think it's totally wrong and totally based on false premises and really actually pretty stupid, you know, those people are sincere. They really believe that they're helping children and they're stopping evil with what they're doing. Now, many others believe they're totally misguided and they've been misdirected onto a false playing field and are really going to be hurt when it turns out to be such utter horse pucky coming up, if they haven't already learned that. But let them have their path as best we can without anger and certainly without violence. If they want to get violent, defend yourselves, but you know what I'm talking about. Uphold the precepts as best we can. So yes, we do have things to deal with anger, and those are the ones I just mentioned. Others, of course, talk about this too, in a little bit less directly. The next thing we're going to do today is to look at a few more of the sayings of Ramana that we've been looking at over the past few weeks. Ramana Maharshi in the book Thus Spake Ramana, which is a booklet that Sri Ramana Ashram puts out in Tiruvannamalai, Tamil Nadu, India. this place is a wonderful one. I heartily recommend getting there if you ever can. One teacher who I, on a personal level, don't get along with, at least does his people a service of introducing them to the teachings of Ramana Maharshi, takes them to Tiruvannamalai, and then tells them, I've done all I can do for you. You're with the real place now. I mean, don't listen to me anymore. Go for it. And basically, I really respect that because compared to what is to offer at Ramana Ashram and with Ramana's teachings itself and at that holy mountain Arunachala, no person can really stand up to that except the highest of the high teachers. How many of those are there in the world? 10? 20? How many show up to Tiru every year claiming to be? Hundreds. Oh my God. You have so many posters up to come and get enlightened with this guy or this gal or that gal that you're going, what, really? You know? Oh yeah. It's during the season there, which is December, January, February, it's quite nuts. As far as, except during COVID times. This year it was very tranquil. But except for COVID times, it gets pretty interesting there. Quite a scene. And a lot of people know the truth and will tell you about it. Yes, I'm so lucky. I have been spoken to by the high ones, and they will share through me what they have to tell you about becoming real. And by the way, you're kind of cute. Oh, you have some money, do you? Well, a good donation helps with learning the truth. I mean, oh my God, it's all there. And it was quite a scene. And luckily, there are a few really good teachers that do show up and are for real. Now, going to this week's lesson again, readings. Yeah. There are just a few. To see an object that is in the dark, both the eye and the light of a lamp are required. To see the light alone, the eye is enough. To see the sun, there is no need of any other light. Our intellect, or buddhi, is of no use to realize the self with the big S, all that is, the absolute. To see the world of external objects, the mind and the reflected light, which always rises with the mind, are necessary. And the reflected light that comes with the mind is called Chidasa. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing it. Chidabasa. Yeah, that's it. Chidabasa. Okay. I haven't pronounced it much. I've heard it more than I pronounced it. I've read it more too. But Chidabasa. Okay, is that reflected light? Sorry about the aside there. To see the self, the mind has simply to be turned inside, and there is no need of the reflected light. It's one reason most traditions say to totally close your eyes for meditation, yes? You close your eyes, and where do you have to look? I'm going to read it one more time without interruption. To see an object that is in the dark, both the eye and the light of a lamp are required. To see the light alone, the eye is enough. But to see the sun, there is no need of any other light. Our intellect or buddhi is of no use to realize the self. To see the world of external objects, the mind and the reflected light, which always rises with it, are necessary. To see the self, the mind has simply to be turned inside, and there is no need of the reflective light. Reflected light. It used to bother me that people said that the universe doesn't exist until you see it, until you wake up and you acknowledge, oh, I'm awake and here's the world again. That always bothered me. It made it sound like I, little Mark, was the creator of the universe. No, not this little Mark. All that is the so-called creator of the universe as far as the universe was ever created. But for you, we in our bodies, with our so-called minds to recognize it, we need the reflected light. Okay, we open our eyes or we get awake, and we need that input coming into these bodies, the reflected light. But it's part of the real, but it's not all of the real. If this is all we see, we're never seeing everything. We have to understand that we have to know on a level beyond regular understanding. The big self, the absolute. And once we're in tune with that, we know there's nothing to fear, nothing to be angry about. Okay, let's move to the next one. What is self-realization? You are, in truth, the self with the capital S, the Atma. And that is here and now also. Where is the place for accomplishment here? This question shows that you think you are the non-self, or you think that you are two selves, the one to realize the other. It is absurd. I'm going to read it again. What is self-realization? You are the self, and that is here and now. Where is the place for accomplishment in this? This question shows that you are the non-self. Or do you think there are two selves, the one to realize the other? It is absurd. In other words, there's only here and now. And all that is here and now, including the higher S self, the big you, the real you, which is not separate from anything and is all that is at the same time as it's no more important than any other bit of all that is. Everywhere is the center of all that is. You, your friend, your enemy, someone who died 100 years ago, apparently. They are all it is, and they're all the center of it. So is the ant, so is the flea, so is the mosquito. So is the virus for COVID-19. Blah. But it's all the self. Where is the place for accomplishment in it? My teacher used to always talk about doing, saying you are not the doer. And that drove me nuts for 3 years until on an intellectual level I got it. But you are not the doer, he always said. You are a product of your genetics and conditioning. You can't beat those. And all of those come from the self. They all come from the apparent universe and world and all the interactions that the self has created. If the self is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, if it's all powerful everywhere all the time and all knowing, nothing beats that. Nothing beats that. Nothing can surpass that. Nothing can change that. It just is now, here and now. And yet, I and everyone else, almost, I don't know of any exceptions who didn't go this way at all, think that I am separate, but I need to become one with that. I'm missing out. You're never missing out. You're always there. It's always you. It's always there. And it's just that we forget because we are locked in our thoughts and apparently locked in these bodies. So we think we're separate, but we're like a bottle of seawater in at the bottom of the sea that thinks we're separate from the ocean. One crack in that, and all of a sudden we're just seawater again. When we realize, oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, next one. In a sense, speaking of self realization is a delusion. It is only because people have been under the delusion that the not self is the self and the unreal the real, that they have to be weaned out of it by the other delusion called self realization. Because actually, the self is always the self, and there is no such thing as realizing it. Who is to realize what and how when all that exists is the self and nothing but the self? That's the ultimate joke. Once they get up to that level, the masters say, is that once they've been fighting for years for self-realization, they realize there was really nothing to fight for. They were there the whole time. They just had to open up their eyes to it. It was sitting right here, and they never, well, as my friend Bob said, never leaned back into it and just fell back into it and let it be. Bob always said that you needed to lean back until there was no one left to lean and just be. Bob, around the age of 50, had the experience of using a technique, which is a very good technique, actually, which helped him to realize that when he truly saw the real Bob, that the whole Bob construct was something that his so-called ego had created, and he spent 80% of his life energy maintaining and building up the image of Bob. Well, Bob was a 6'5" tall, handsome, athletic sailboat captain who sailed the seven seas and was a natural leader of men. And people always noticed him when he walked into the room and had a heck of a life. He did so much. Well, when he realized that he'd spent all this time building up this John Wayne like image of Bob, rather than being with what was and wasting all this energy, it was huge. Well, here it is again. Ramana, of course, would have seen it first. And who is to realize what and how when all that exists is the self and nothing but the self? Yeah, I almost felt like meditating again, but no, we've done that. Okay. Well, let's move on to the end of our meeting with the four immeasurables. And we'll start with we. So choose the people or beings or whoever you want to be we with. So yourself and others you care about, others you'd like to be of benefit to, or just everybody or whatever it is, or maybe someone who's really needing some help right now. And let's begin. Please repeat. May we have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we be liberated from suffering and the cause of suffering. May we never be separate from the happiness that is free of sorrow. May we reside in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion. Okay, for the second time, let's say all. Okay, all. All. May all have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all never be separate from the happiness that is free of sorrow. May all reside in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion. I wish you a blessed week. May it become less stressful and less crazy out there in Maya and Samsara and Lila. May you be safe. May you have the best of times in endeavoring to keep the precepts as well as you can. Please do send your questions or comments or anything you'd like to me at mark@naturalrightsangha.org. Blessings.